Origin Jazz Reacts, and this is the Battle of the Sabis, 57 BCE by the channel Historia Civilis. I guess this is against Romans versus Belgae, right? Yeah, those are the people who just came in massive numbers, saw how determined Caesar is. There was really infighting, just went home to resupply, I guess. So they're gonna fight again here. Yeah, this is a great channel. I love it's just blocks and things, but it's it's great. The intensity of that is just awesome. I never thought I would see blocks and this there's graphs and things like that and get excited. But there you go. You don't need a good way too complicated animation if you have really good, I guess good way to make a video like this. So let's watch this one. Remember, if you like my reaction, don't forget to like and subscribe. Check out the reaction. There's a link in the description. Check out the cast over place. Check out the cards, and yeah, let's watch it.
In the year 57 BCE, Julius Caesar was in the first phase of his 9-year campaign against the Gallic peoples. He had had some early success against some of the initial resistance, and managed to march his army far enough north to finally come into contact with the Belgae, whom he called the bravest of all the Gauls. His first encounter with these people happened when he and his army were encamped on a large hilltop. After hearing about Caesar's victories to the south, an agreement had been reached among the Belgae tribes to put aside their differences and meet this new threat as one. Unannounced, a huge Belgae army descended on his position. The two sides sent their cavalry forward for some light skirmishes, but the main forces kept their distance. Caesar, not wanting to abandon his strong position, deployed for battle way up on the hillside. The Belgae deployed at the bottom, just on the other side of a small swamp. These were good defensive positions, and both sides knew it. The two armies would start to get into a pattern, where they would both deploy and just stare at each other all day. This went on for a while. The Belgae came with enough food to last for a handful of days, but this was quickly turning into a siege. The tribes held a late-night meeting and put the matter to a vote. In the end, they decided to go home and resupply, but vowed to return if Caesar took any aggressive action. This is much easier said than done. But what an incredible turn of luck for Caesar. The next day, the Belgae army just melted away in front of him. After a couple of days, Caesar set off after the largest and most formidable tribe, the Nervii. The Nervii had been the chief opponents of breaking up the Belgae coalition. After some negotiations, they convinced many like-minded tribes to stick together and form a new, smaller army, totaling around 75,000 men. They knew that Caesar would be coming after them, so they took their time choosing a good battlefield. They settled on an area intersected by a river called the Sabis, which was only about 3 feet deep and was nestled between two small hills. One hill opened up onto a wide open plain, and the other turned into a dense forest. The Belgae army crossed the river, slipped into the forest, concealed themselves, and waited.
70,000
Caesar had
of
with
them?
him somewhere between 30 and 40,000 men.
Holy shit, so 70,000 of them just went to the woods and hide? Damn, that's something.
Split into 8 legions. He suspected that the crossing of the river Sabis may be contested, so he made his approach with caution. He set up a screen of cavalry and skirmishers to both scout ahead and act as a shield for the main force. He then had his most experienced legions drop their extra baggage and move up to the front, while his 2 rookie legions picked up the extra weight and stayed back, advancing with the baggage train. When the Romans arrived at the river, they didn't see any Belgae. Caesar decided that this hill protected by a river on one side was a good enough defensive position.
Yeah, so Caesar already knows that, the woods, the river, that could be, they were hiding somewhere like that. So they could surprise attack us. So most experienced, legions stay ahead, and obviously cavalry stays ahead as well. So they basically can just run back because they're fast basically. So in that sense, we suffer very little losses because he's expecting them to, surprise attack them.
So he had his men start to encamp for the night. The cavalry and skirmishers crossed to the other side of the river to scout ahead, as the infantry started fortifying the hill. Remember, the Belgae were already out there, silently watching from the tree line. When the Roman scouts got close, a signal was given and the Belgae attacked all at once, catching the Romans completely unaware. The cavalry and skirmishers immediately retreated across the river, desperately signaling to the main Roman army that
they didn't get killed? That's something, right? Anybody else besides Romans here, they would have been killed like that because that's a massive 70,000 army hiding in the woods. The cavalry, small number, goes there and suddenly realize, oh, we are just here and they are, waiting for us. Immediate attack would mean the cavalry dies, but they didn't. They successfully ran away.
The Roman infantry were all split up and busy setting up the camp for the night. Some were digging trenches, some were setting up tents, some were gathering firewood. Before Caesar even had time to sound his trumpets, his legion commanders were running around grabbing soldiers from random units and throwing them into ad hoc lines of battle. In no time at all, the Romans went from total disarray to having a disorganized but workable defensive line. By the time everybody was in position, the battle had already begun on the Roman right flank. The Belgae were immediately in danger of enveloping the line, and the Romans were giving ground.
I don't know why I'm imagining some Romans don't even have armors on, just wearing towels and shit. Oh, I was just taking a bath, man. What the fuck?
Some of the men dropped their weapons and began to flee. Caesar arrived on the scene, jumped off his horse, picked up a shield, and ran into his infantry, shouting encouragement and getting his men to physically push back against the Belgae with their shields. He was successful. The Belgae advance was stopped, and both sides paused for a moment to catch their breath. Caesar took this opportunity to quickly redeploy his men into a defensive square formation in order to avoid being enveloped on the right for a second time. Meanwhile, on the Roman left, 2 legions had charged downhill into enemy lines, and they were doing quite well.
See, the best thing about this is that, the opposing people attacked surprisingly, right? That means the Romans are fucked basically, because they didn't even know the attack was happening until the attack was just there. Even though they created this good enough defense, that is still after knowing how they are outnumbered here, right? They are massively outnumbered here. So by this, anybody would think the Romans would suffer lots of losses and retreat. But best thing about Romans is it's not just Julius Caesar, right? His subordinates like Labienus and people like that, who also work as a somewhat of a leader in different areas. So Julius Caesar doesn't have to run left and right to create order and create words of encouragement and hyping the soldiers up and things like that. There are people who can take initiatives. That's the best thing about Julius Caesar's time, I guess. There were people under him that were really good, like how Napoleon had his marshals.
The Belgae forces on this side seemed a little thin, and the Romans were able to keep pushing all the way across the river. Once across the river, the Belgae collapsed into a full-on rout and fled into the woods. The ease of this victory must have made one of the legion commanders a little suspicious, because instead of joining in on the slaughter, he had his men turn and double time along the bank of the river back towards the Roman right flank.
Okay, see that?
And on the right.
Rather than just doing what everybody else is doing, the person took an initiative. Who is it? Is it Labienus or something? That's the only name I can remember. The guy during the Helvetii, took the hill, went all the way back to the hill area where the Helvetii was.
Flank, the Romans were still in a fight for their lives. At some point in the fighting, a large number of Belgae had been able to force their way around the Romans on the right, and had started to make their way up the hill towards the Roman baggage train.
Damn.
Imagine the surprise of these 2 rookie legions when this huge Belgae raiding party crested the hill and charged. Meanwhile, that legion from the Roman left finally made it all the way to the Roman right, and discovered that the right was in danger of being totally overwhelmed. Despite being completely exhausted, this legion entered the battle for a second time and charged the Belgae rear. The Belgae made a heroic last stand, but the writing was on the wall. Eventually, they were all killed. And speaking of heroism, the 2 rookie legions had now officially entered the battle. After the Belgae charged, the fighting got absolutely ferocious. The Roman defensive line...
Actually, this is a bit dangerous area, right? I mean, they attacked the supply train, but they could have easily just went back and attacked the flank of the, middle flank of the Roman army there. That would have been so disastrous. But they attacked the rookies here.
Broke down pretty quickly, and the whole thing turned into a giant free-for-all. It got so bad that slaves and civilians from the baggage train grabbed weapons and joined the fight.
Damn.
The Roman skirmishers and cavalry, who had barely escaped with their lives at the beginning of the battle, noticed what was happening and ran back to help. It was a long, bloody fight, but the rookies held their own, and eventually these last remaining Belgae surrendered to them. We don't know how many Romans were killed, but it was probably a lot.
Yeah.
4 of Caesar's 8 legions had been overrun at some point in the battle. In one anecdote, we're told that the 2 legions on the Roman right lost almost every one of their centurions.
Damn.
This explains why some of the men broke and ran. With this resounding victory over the Belgae, the first phase of Caesar's conquest of...
Seriously, anyone instead of, Romans and Julius Caesar would have been, screwed here. They would have retreated, ran back with many losses, but they actually won here. being outnumbered to, I guess, what, 1 to, they were double, right? They were 70,000, the opponents.
Gaul came to a close. Years of bloody campaigning remained, but this was the most extreme the fighting got until the Battle of Alesia, many years later, when the Gauls would make a valiant last stand against their new occupiers.
Yeah, obviously, the Julius Caesar is not going to fall for shit like that again. Every time he's going to see the wood, he's going to expect that people are hiding there, even if they're not. Hey Caesar, do you wanna, call it a night over there and make camp near the woods? Yeah, I don't think so. No more woods. Keep that shit far away from me as you can. No woods anymore. But how much Caesar would have been like, oh, what the fuck? Did this just happen? Because he was caught off guard here and he did suffer many losses than he should have. So this probably was wake up call, like, yeah, never see woods in any area like that, and just lower your guard. There might be people there who surprise attack. Right, people, that was the battle of the Sabis. Everybody, even the slaves, civilian, everybody joined in. See, that's the thing. The some form of unity in Romans is what keeps them strong. Their commanders like Labienus and people also taking initiatives. That's what makes Caesar and his army stronger, I guess. Alright people, I guess I'll see you next time.